Hey everybody, good morning, good morning. It is 9:15-ish Central Time right here at CSLDallas, and my name is Tracy Brown. I'm so glad to say hey and hello and good morning. If you're here, you probably already know this is the perfect time for us to dive in to the Science of Mind textbook and to explore what Ernest Holmes wrote in the textbook and what it means to us today and how we can apply it in our lives. So the process, just in case you've only been with us once or twice, or maybe even this is the first time, we actually read directly from the textbook, a sentence, a paragraph, a page, and then talk about what does it mean. So I will do that for about 15 minutes, maybe 20, depending on what the topic is. And then I want to know what you think about it, what your questions are, what you have done to apply whatever we're talking about in your life. So we'll open it up to questions and comments at that time. So take a deep breath with me. And become fully present right here and right now, agreeing with me that this is the perfect time to simply explore, no right, no wrong, but explore what Ernest Holmes has to say. So we are in, I think it's chapter 6. It is chapter 6, man's relationship to the spiritual universe. And this is one of the chapters where we don't always, in reading it directly, change the word man to humanity or human or humankind or person. I will do that some, but in this chapter, there are also times in reading it, it's important to hold on to Ernest Holmes' words. So when you hear man, just in your own mind, mentally make the translation. And we are starting at the top of page 117. We're about a third of the way through the chapter. And at the top of 117, we are beginning to end up the subsection, which, as you can watch me, I'm going back several pages. It's a long subsection on spirit, soul, and body. Top of page 117. The last analysis of matter resolves matter into a universal ether and leaves nothing more than a stuff which may be operated on, a force and energy without volition, ready to become molded. I'm going to read that again because it's a lot of words. Now, those of you who love the science part of Science of Mind, the logical part, the part of how physical and spiritual laws work, you're loving this sentence and this paragraph. For those of you who really would rather have something a little more fuzzy and soft and, kind of unformed around the edges, you may struggle with this sentence and paragraph, but just hang in there. Top of page 117. The last analysis of matter resolves it into a universal ether and leaves nothing more than a stuff which may be operated upon, a force and energy without volition, ready to become molded. In the theoretical beginning of creation, the world was, quote, without form and void, end quote. There is no difference in the ultimate and minute particles which take innumerable forms, only a difference in the arrangement. Our bodies are one with the whole body of the universe. Seeds, plants, cabbages, and kings are all made of the same substance. Minerals, solids, and liquids are made from this primordial substance which is forever flowing into form and forever flowing out again into the void. Nothing could give form to a formless stuff which has no mind of its own, but some intelligence operating through it. Here then, we come back to the Word as the starting point of all creation. God's Word in the great creation, the great world, and man's word in the small world. One spirit, one mind, and one substance. One law, but many ideas. Do I want to stop there? One law, but many ideas. One power, but many ways of using it. One God in whom we all live, and one law which we all use. One. In all caps with double exclamation marks at the end. No greater unity could be conceived than that which is already given. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a moment, and then maybe we'll go to the next paragraph. But in these two paragraphs on page 117, it's just a reminder that's already been said earlier in the book that there's one substance from which all is made. Now, when Ernest Holmes wrote this in the 19-teens and 20s, and then revised it in the 1930s, science had not gotten to the place where science is now. So there was no study of quantum physics as we know it. But because we are now in the 21st century, many of us have heard about and read about, and some studied, quantum physics, and the idea that there's only one kind of matter. It's just moving faster or moving slower or more compacted, more densely or more loosely, and that all of that is basically what Ernest Holmes is referring to, even though the scientists weren't saying it at the time. So this is another example of how science and philosophy come together, or religious mystics will write about something, and then, 2,000 years later, the scientists will prove it from a whole different angle. And so Ernest Holmes just reminds us that we're all made from the same stuff. And then he also is writing in these two paragraphs that it's not only me and you as people who are all made of the same stuff, but everything that has been created in nature is made of that same substance, that same stuff. It's just configured differently. So why is this important? So that this is where going back to what's this whole chapter about? The whole chapter 1 through 5 was about the nature of God, the nature of spirit. And then in chapter 6, we begin to study the relationship of humanity to God, right? And so that first subsection, humanity reenacts the nature of God. Then some of you will remember Dr. Petra talking about, we've already learned everything we can through suffering, or at least Ernest Holmes' premise of that. And now we are in this section of freedom or bondage. And then we are in this section that goes from punishment and reward to spirit, soul, and body. So we've been reviewing spirit, soul, and body as a concept and how it applies to us in the physical form versus the theoretic form or the universal form of spirit. And body, or the effect of cause and effect, the effect is matter, configured in some form that then we recognize and we label as human being or mountain or squirrel Or what did he use?
Cabbages and kings.
Seeds, plants, cabbages, and kings are all made of the same substance. So I don't know, one of the questions I have for you is, will be, does this make any sense to you? And two, why do you think it matters that we recognize that there is only one substance? Because this chapter goes on. I was looking to see if it's only one or two more paragraphs, we could just finish it up, but we're not going to finish it up this month, let alone today. So, let's go to questions, because when I'm looking at the next part of this, we better stop here and then add that on. So, Ryan, how about some instructions?
Yes, I love giving instructions. Well, good morning to you, Dr. Tracy, and good morning to everybody here in the room, and for all the folks who are joining us online. Glad to see you here and glad to be in community with you. And so, as Dr. Tracy was explaining, this is an engaging conversation, so we'd love to hear from you. If you're here on campus and I'm waving to you, that means you will be seen on camera, and you can always move over here to my left-hand side if you choose not to be. But you can raise your hand, and I have a volunteer today. The lovely Darlene will help me out with the microphone. So just raise your hand, and she'll bring it over to you. And for the folks joining us via Zoom, you can go ahead and hit that raise your hand icon. It's located down below underneath the More or Reactions tab. And for the folks joining us all over the world on Facebook, we love to hear from you and check in. Say where you're from and leave your questions and comments below. So I guess we'll poll the room here first. Looks like we have Keenan up here. Pass the mic over there.
And if you're in the room, please remember to say your name. The microphone is not amplifying in the room, but it is allowing people online to hear what you are asking or saying.
I'm flattered I was introduced, but I'll say my name again. I'm Keenan. So two statements caught my attention that I would like some kind of clarification on. So the first one is, in the theoretical beginning of creation, the world was formed without form and void. All right? And then if you go to the end of the paragraph, it says, minerals, solids, and liquids are made from this primordial substance, which is forever flowing into form and forever flowing out again into void. So the first statement kind of lumps form and void together, and then the second one kind of says, okay, it's coming from form and flowing into void. So at least that's my interpretation of what it's saying. I'm kind of caught up on the second one. Okay, so if everything comes from the primordial substance and then it's forever flowing out in the void, what is this void thing? And that always got me, even from reading the Bible and stuff like that. Like, what is this void? Where is it? It's basically making the statement that it's going somewhere. It's calling that place it's going void, but what is that?
I love this, and I am pausing because this would be easy to spend 30 minutes on, and I'm not intending to do that. So, okay, so near the top of page 117, in the theoretical beginning of creation, the world was, in quotes, without form and void. So there are a couple of things happening with this sentence. One is the quotes are, he is quoting the Bible. And so part of the reason that it's the theoretical beginning of creation is because the Bible tells a story of creation, but not necessarily the story of creation. So my best guess is that part of the reason Ernest Holmes used the theoretical beginning of creation is because of that, and he knows he's quoting the biblical the Christian biblical creation language. Whereas if you go to different cultures, they may have different language. So in that theory, following that line of conversation that is really pretty commonly known, like he's thinking about his audience that would be reading this, that's what most people would quote or know, without form and void, meaning without form and void actually is referring to there is nothing. So from a scientific perspective, you'll hear people talk about, the Big Bang, and then there was no emptiness, life was created. So void actually means empty, and so there was no form, and it was empty, there was nothing. That's what that means. And then at the end, it goes to that things are all made of the same substance, quote, which is forever flowing into form and forever flowing out again into the void. And from what you said, I'm hearing, maybe incorrectly, that you're reading this as one happens and then the other, like it's sequential. And
even if it's cyclical.
Right, it's that they're both happening at the same time. So I may be flowing into form, but everything, there is no stagnancy in the universe, right? And so everything is constantly changing. Even in the human experience, we're constantly moving from condition to condition to condition. So it's not meaning that you flow into form and that's all you're doing in there, then you're flowing out at some point. It's fluid. So if you could just substitute the word that, which is forever fluid, that life is forever fluid for all forms of life. Because the beginning of that sentence is mineral solids and liquids are made from this primordial substance. This substance is constantly shifting and changing and adapting to whatever form it needs to be to have the experience. And what was making me laugh is I was hearing Deepak Chopra in my head, and it's not directly related to this, but Deepak Chopra answered a question about money and prosperity, but especially money, that someone asked him, and he said, don't worry about it. The money is flowing from wherever it is now to where you needed to be to do what you are doing. And so that image in my head, even though we're not talking just about money, is that this primordial substance is constantly morphing, changing, shifting, flowing from one thing to another to be what it needs to be. Does that make any sense, or did I just confuse it more?
It makes sense. It makes sense, like what you're saying makes sense, but it doesn't make sense in the context. Like if you're gonna say void is nothing, well, we're not flowing into nothing, we're flowing into something. It sounds good, it's an eloquent use of words, but would you say that Ernest Holmes may have incorrectly used that word forever flowing into void? Because even if that's happening simultaneously, where does this space of nothing come into the experience of change that is happening, or the fluidity of change that is happening?
So I'm going to invite you to, for just 30 seconds, to put your logical mind in a box. Like, lock up your logical mind. Just for...
This is for the logical mind. That's for us.
It is, right, it is. But just for 30 seconds. I don't want you to make it go away. Just for 30 seconds. So, Richard, I'm getting ready to stand up and move. So, I'm here, right? And you can see me, I'm here. And if I move one step to the right, then you see me here. So, you're not using your logical mind now, you're using your creative mind, right? So if I am here and then I'm here, to our human eye, it looks like Tracy is moving, but her form hasn't changed, right? She's still in this form, nothing has changed. But what if what's actually happening is the matter, right? The quarks, the waves, the scientific, the primordial substance actually just stops being here for a moment in time that is too short for us to see physically. There is nothing, and then I'm recreated here. So it's what I see with or experience with my senses is not everything that's happening. So the idea that something could be in a physical form and leave into the void or flow into the void to then pop up as a different form or the next experience of that form is, you're right, it's not the logical scientific part except for people who have been studying quantum physics. And the research says, oh, the matter is there because we're observing it. But then it jumps over here and it's something else. And then because we're observing it and looking for it, it goes there and if it shifts form a little bit because of what we're expecting. All of those moves between the moves is what he's referring to as the void. It's from something to nothing to something. We don't necessarily see the nothing. We see the body, the effect, the physical. So again, this was before quantum physics, but what I just tried to do, and not sure I did it well at all, was kind of combine the philosophical, spiritual understanding of creation is always creating. And when you are creating, you're creating from nothing into something. So I don't want to use the word, but it's coming out of my mouth. So the logical assumption is that it goes to nothing to become the next something. It goes to nothing to become the next something. It goes to nothing to become the next something. Even, and I'm going to say this to you because I know based on the questions you ask, this may be helpful. And some of you out there are like, wait a minute, but you tell us, Tracy, that we could choose our thoughts and that we are choosing our thoughts and describing what we want. So aren't we always building on where we are? Like, I want to go from where I am now to this new career or this new job or this new family relationship. Isn't that a continuous process? What we see is the continuous process. And I'm willing to entertain that there are all kinds of places where we're stepping into the void and then into the next experience.
So he's describing the unseen.
He's describing the unseen.
Thank you.
That was good. He's describing the unseen. I could have said that. It would have saved 4 minutes. Next time. Do we have anybody online, Ryan? Do we have anybody in the room? Ooh, good. I get to build on this. So near the bottom of page 117, last paragraph. So we find that humanity is one with the physical universe in which we live. The physical universe has no self-determination. We find that the physical body is a latent mass of matter. Our body is really one with the body of God, with the physical universe, but body doesn't know it is body. If feet knew they were feet with the physical capacity to walk, they might be cut off and still be able to run down the street on an errand. In caps, it is one thing to say that our feet do not know they are feet, and quite another thing to say that they are illusions. Yet all are agreed that they have no intelligence of their own. Of itself, the physical universe is an effect. So it is with the physical part of man, which we call the body. When we realize, at the top of page 118, when we realize that in dealing with our own individuality, we are dealing with self-conscious mind, and when we realize that in dealing with subjective mind, we are dealing with a universal subjectivity, we shall come to understand that we have a creative intelligence at our disposal, compared with which the united intelligence of the human race is as nothing. The universal subjective mind, being entirely receptive to our thought, is compelled by its very nature to accept that thought and act upon it no matter what the thought may be. That's a lot of words. A lot of words. Let's see if I can break that down a little bit. Three key points. In our own lives, we are dealing with self-conscious mind. We are conscious of ourselves. We are conscious of our lives. We are conscious of our beingness. Unlike our feet, which they are real, but they can't think on their own. They don't have a life of their own, separate from the physical human body. So the first point in this paragraph is about we have to realize we are dealing with the ability to have self-consciousness, self-awareness of who we are, what we are. Second key point, that we're dealing with subjective mind, and universal subjectivity is spirit, that part of spirit, which is always saying yes. I mean, a lot of you have heard us say the universe always says yes, or there's only one word in the vocabulary of God, and it's yes. But that subjective mind or universal subjectivity is at our disposal and is always responding to our thoughts and that which we claim and that which we demonstrate that we are committed to, or that we're thinking about, or that we care about. So that's key point number 2, restated differently. And that this subjective mind, this universal subjective mind, is entirely receptive. And it will accept whatever it is that we program it with without judgment. We are the ones that have judgment. We are the ones that create societies that say, this is what's good, this is what's bad. Oh, if you did this, you're going to jail. Oh, if you do that, you're not going to have any friends. Oh, if you do this, you're going to harm your body. Spirit, universal, subjective mind is like not going to say, oh, I don't know, Tracy, you're getting kind of old to be going roller skating twice a week. Like, people your age don't do that. The universe is responding to my programming that says, I will roller skate on a regular basis until at least age 75, if not longer. And some of you may say, she's crazy. Why would she do that? But universal subjective mind is like, cool. She's been saying that for a few decades now. I guess it's really true. Let's make it happen. So a little bit of a silly example, but universal subjective mind doesn't have no in its vocabulary. Okay, so do you want me to keep going, or do we have any comments? Or how this applies to you? Doesn't have to be a question. It can be how you have used it and how you understand it. But we're going to go online, and then online first or in the room first?
Yeah, I just wanted to read this comment because it kind of falls in alignment with the example of how this can be used. They say, the way I interpret this has been helping me deal with a major death in my family. I believe that this person who died actually transitioned into a different form. Therefore, I can reframe the death not as a loss, but as a different way of connecting with that person's essence. So,
That
that's
is
application of
that is a much better example than I gave, but it is really powerful. That is a really powerful way to think about it, and we actually do teach that we as people, right, that we are immortal. Our soul is immortal, right? We believe in the eternality, continuity, and immortality of the individual human soul. So that idea of the physical body going into nothingness or the void, but the soul is still expressing in a different form that we don't know and we can't see, is actually a good way to remember and think about it. So, we're coming in the room.
All right.
And
My
your
name's
name
Gordon.
is?
I'm glad somebody online brought that up because I haven't really studied the quantum physics, but all I was thinking about with the void was life and death, and that. So it was more simplistic, but it was working for me. So I'm going to think about what was said about the other. I like the 3 points that you brought up in the last two paragraphs. The one that really jumped out to me the other morning when I read it was the idea that you can take all the knowledge and all the everything since the time of creation, and it doesn't hold a candle to what my individual capabilities and knowledge and understanding represent. I mean, that just blew me away. Charles Barker talks about the idea that literally we should be able to live indefinitely. Our bodies as divine, there should really be no ending. There shouldn't be the idea that we die at a certain age or something, because if we really take it to the extreme, then that's kind of the, what do you call it, the golden ring, or that's possible. But I really like that one sentence that Ernest said.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be interesting when we think about so much we know and see in nature? So the mountain that has been around for not just a century at a time, but for just such a long period of time in life. It changes. It's affected by the wind or the rain or the heat, but it's still standing. So wouldn't it be interesting to just think about, okay, well, we have a physical body, and what if we didn't, quote unquote, physically die, but instead we just transformed into an ageless, it's hard for me to think in the physical form, eternal. But what if we just thought about that? Because we don't think of mountains as dying, or we don't think of the oak tree as dying. We think of, oh, that oak tree is going to live, or the trees in the redwood forest, like how long have they been living? But we don't think of the human body that way. And so, yes, we are convinced that the body must deteriorate over time, even though our soul and the essence of who we are does not ever die. It just moves into a different form. So that's going to be something I think about this week. What if I was like the oak tree and I just adjusted and adapted and lived for thousands of years? It's interesting and a little scary as well. So you passed the microphone, yes?
So, Keenan again. So, I've recently gotten really curious about ritual and ceremonial magic. And in my curiosity, I start pondering, like, what is, like, one, like, I want to experience this thing. I want to, like, figure out what this is all about, right? But, like, you know, where do you find that? Like, where do you look and figure this stuff out? Do you pick up a book? How do you know if you're interpreting something that was written 500 years ago in the way it was meant to be interpreted, right? So, but I start pondering, you know, there's people that meet up and do this kind of stuff, but like, why do people do that? Like, what is it, and what is its purpose? And what I've at least come to of why I'm still interested in it is this play on subjective mind, and at least that's my interpretation of it, is for the same reason that advertisements or government propaganda or science of mind treatment or whatever the case may be, it almost seems like this is a methodical approach to affecting your subjective mind. And by that affecting your subjective mind, by using the magic or rites or rituals or whatever, the ceremony, to affect your subjective mind, you also connect with your conscious mind, because your conscious mind is it's bouncing off that subjective aspect of things. So I don't know. That was just something interesting that brought it back to the subjective part of the last conversation. That's what it made me think of, is this play on mastering or affecting your subjective mind to create, you know, your conscious outcome.
There's a lot there. Couple of things. So first and foremost, I'm going to go to, and then I'm going to go somewhere else, but I'm going to start with what we teach in Science of Mind around subjective mind. So subjective mind is universal subjective mind is the purview of the spirit, of law, of God, of whatever the spiritual laws are that make life work. So universal subjective mind, we're placing an order, and it is saying yes. It is going to make that happen, or something that gives that experience or that quality. And that's a little different than thinking subjective mind is something that I am controlling. I'm placing an order and it's responding to it. So I guess some people would say I'm controlling it because I'm telling it what to give, but I'm not controlling the creation of what comes back.
No,
right. Right.
I'm not saying that. But it's understanding that it's a thing that's affected by your experience, and that ritual is attempting to affect your experience. That the law, you see where I'm going with it?
I do. So that I needed to say that. Now I'm going to come over here. So we live as human beings, we live by rites and rituals. So the idea, and I'm not downplaying at all what I think you're talking about in terms of rites and rituals, especially of magic or of different spiritual paths and traditions. But I do want to answer this or respond to this in the context of, as human beings, almost everything we do is rites and rituals in order to understand our environment and then to choose what works for us and what doesn't. So, yes, we know that there are many different paths to exploring that and to exploring life and how it shows up and how we want to show up within it. So while we may not have in Science of Mind the same kinds of rituals. There's nothing wrong. We don't have any negative judgment about or positive preference for some other path that has determined this is a ritual that will help you learn this or do that. Does that make sense? It's like you're being drawn to it, and you're being drawn to it because it's right for you to explore.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I guess the bottom line point I want to make is you're curious about it for a reason. And Jerry might not be curious about it at all, and they're both okay. As long as none of us get into or fall into the trap of there is an answer outside of ourselves that is going to create all the answers in the life that we want. But there are many different tools and paths and ways to study and explore the experience of life. I'm getting the signal to wrap up, so quickly.
This resonates
And your
with
name
me.
is?
Hello, I'm Michael. And what I'm feeling from this is about creativity and the possibility of using this stem cell of nature to allow the creation of cabbages and kings and anything else.
Yeah, Ernest Holmes in this entire chapter is really giving us the reminders. And this section that we just started and will continue next week is titled The Limitless Medium. The limitless medium with which we are using to create our lives. So that's where we will jump in again next week. A couple of quick announcements. What's going on in the world of CSL Dallas, Ryan Brown?
Well, yes, I just want to make mention we're going to have a couple things that are happening that can take this theory and philosophy and put it to practical use. One of them is going to be a workshop that I'll be hosting. It's going to be coming up on the 24th called Vision Cast, which is actually going to be a meditative plus art experience. So it's designed to really help you to identify some of those energy blocks in your life by going through a nice guided meditation and then expressing that into an artwork form. And then the next thing I wanted to mention to you guys is we have a group that meets up here. It's called the Sustainability Circle. And they are going to have a second in the series of informative meetups that they're doing. And so next Sunday, right after the Sunday celebration, they'll be doing an information circle that's going to be both online and in person. And for this one, it's going to be talking more about how you can live a more sustainable life at your house. So things around the house that will make your home more energy efficient, things that you can do out in your community to help with making the best of the opportunities that we have here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and beyond. So join the Sustainability Circle. Once again, that's going to be online and in person here next Sunday, right after the celebration.
And join us this week for the celebration in 30 minutes, right here on campus or online on Facebook or YouTube. So, my name is Tracy Brown. This is the Sunday morning Science of Mind class, and we'll see you again soon.